Good morning. Happy Monday. Welcome to Inside Texas Football, powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm with Eric and Coach today. If you're watching while working from home, I really hope you're on a Zoom call right now because that's a pretty baller move. Thank you for doing that. Want to thank people in the chat. Go ahead and throw some stuff in there. Obviously, we've got our Jacob Woodyard, our Oklahoma friend here. We've got Leonard. We appreciate you guys being here. Let's rip the Band-Aid off, boys. Last week was a massive week. We had obviously early signing period was there, and then we had the SEC championship, and then this week we get the joy of the transfer portal. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on, but I just love to get your from the hip shot here about that SEC championship game, Eric. Is there anything you want to get off your chest?
No, I mean it's look, whatever. Georgia presents problems that most schools can't to Texas, and then on top of it, Texas shot itself in the foot way too many times. The first game, you feel like Georgia just won outright, fair and square. This one, Texas was there for the taking for Texas, and they were their own worst enemy. And when they've played poorly this year, you've seen too many penalties, not taking advantage of great opportunities. A lot of missed opportunities. You know, that pick six it should have been a pick six by Jahdae Barron. Didn't get a block. Matthew Golden had a fantastic game. That would have been a tough catch in the end zone. But we've seen him make tougher catches even within that game. And then, of course, Bert Arbin misses a couple of field goals. So it's frustrating. But you can't look at that game and go, oh, Texas doesn't belong in the SEC. If that was your takeaway, then that's ridiculous because Texas kind of really dominated the run of play there, especially in the first half. And you wonder, maybe the one time they created an opportunity might have hurt them too, knocking out Carson Beck. Then they brought in their quarterback, and the quarterback, they just told him to go be Dylan Gabriel. And that's what he did. So, yeah, it's frustrating, but I'm glad that, Sark gets to catch his breath now. They don't have to go immediately into Clemson super hard. Obviously, they've got people breaking down tape, but they can start focusing on the portal a little bit and, catch the breath.
I think, the big thing too is obviously just injuries, right? We got to get some people healthy. This is going to add an opportunity for that. Kelvin didn't play. Gooseby stood up, absolutely balled out. Really, really proud of him. That's a position of need everywhere, and to know that left flank is going to be in good hands moving forward is a very reassuring feeling. And I'm sure that's something we'll address as we move and to talk about the transfer portal a little bit later. But where were you on this one, Coach? Are you okay? You able to? You didn't? I mean, for my take, I was you're not happy with a loss, but to Eric's point, it was very clear that we belong. And if you're taking Georgia, who is a well-established championship team that has been through the ringer and the crucible of the SEC and the SEC championship to overtime, in spite of the fact that most of that overtime was as a result of your own errors, I think you're doing pretty well, and that's a good sign moving forward.
Yeah, look, and Sark said it best. We kind of just let them hang around, right? And most teams haven't been able to take advantage of our miscues that we have when we shoot our own selves in the foot. Georgia's just a little bit better where they can, but we let them hang around. So it wasn't nothing Georgia did anything. They didn't play perfect either, but they just made more plays in the end than we did, and we shot ourselves in the foot more than they did. So at the end of the day, we were right there, and we're close. If we can find a way to clean it up, that game's not even close, if you ask me. We could have put it away in the first half, and so we let them hang around, and then things happen when you let teams hang around, and momentum swings back and forth, and they made just a few more plays in the second half than we did. But it's not anything like Texas not being SEC ready or anything like that. We dominated time possession. I thought we were a more physical team, especially in the first half too. Just capitalize on the small things, and the game turns around and it's the other way.
So, Coach, I mean, you guys are going over tape. I know this may seem obvious, but what are the areas that you think we can clean up super easy?
That's fundamental things like blocking. You've been doing it all season, something you've been working on since, last spring, right? You go into fall camp. Like, keep your hands inside and move your feet. If the guy moves away from you, you got to kind of move with him so that you don't get caught holding outside the frame. Some things you can't control, but the drops, right? Just look the ball in. It's just little small things that you've been working on and you're taught to do, and they work on every single day. Like, these guys put in work, and they work hard. It's just the small details, like looking the ball in before you try to catch it and before you try to take off and run. So there's nothing significant that they need to improve on. It's just the small things you just need to fix, honestly.
I want to go to our Jacob Woodyard here. He's no doubt wearing an open road while sitting at home on his Zoom call. I'm going to throw this to you, Eric. And for those of you listening, the question is, would it be fair to say that this program is still learning how to win? What's your take on that, Eric?
I don't think so. I think that's a fair question, obviously, but obviously you're only going to ask that question after they play Georgia this season.
Sure, fair enough. Yeah.
They showed a number of times that they know how to win. I think the problem is they're not able to put teams away when they should, and make games just be, no doubt at all. You got to create more margin of error if you're Texas. We saw, Vanderbilt, they should have blown Vanderbilt out. That ended up being a 3-point win. The Kentucky game the Arkansas game was way more close than it should have been. There are plays to be made in the first half where you're going to change the whole complexion of things because you're going to force quarterbacks to get more aggressive, throw the ball around, then you're going to create more turnovers. And they're just not able to avalanche teams like they should be able to. You saw them do it to Florida. They didn't have a quarterback and had their corners out. So that game doesn't even really count in that regard. So they know how to win. They don't know how to put teams away early when they have the opportunity. That's the big problem. And it even reared its head against a mighty Georgia team that matches them physicality and has the equal amount of talent. They could have had that game pretty much an insurmountable lead, especially the way Carson Beck was throwing the ball in the first half, and they weren't able to create that. So I don't know if it's, somebody said it right the other day, lack of killer instinct maybe. They know how to win. They learned how to win last year. They had way too many close games. A lot of those games shouldn't have been close. U of H, Kansas State. This year they've learned how to win. They haven't learned how to create more margin of error. And you can't afford to play like that against Georgia.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes easy to forget that in Sark's first year, we lost a lot of those close games. I mean, there were very narrow margin losses. The second year, we had games where he was winning those close margin games, and I think that's a really fair point, Eric, to look at it as an issue of actually just putting people away as opposed to actually just winning the game. It gives me hope, actually, because there were teams, obviously, certainly that first year with Sark, where the first half would be fantastic. The other team would inch their way back, and then we would lose that game. We couldn't close the game out, and I don't feel that way anymore. I feel that we're certainly more capable of closing games out. But your point is well taken. We shouldn't be in position to have it that close at the end of the game, and that's definitely a challenge. We're gonna move over to one of the hot topics that everybody's talking about because it just happened yesterday, and that is going to be the playoff bracket and how all that went down. I want to talk a little bit too about Kirby's taken on the role of politician a little bit in the SEC, and he's definitely letting Sankey hear it but before we do that, I want to hear from our sponsor, Laura Baker.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512 or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
We got a taste of how all this is going to go down yesterday when our friend Reese Davis gave us a lot of time to think about everything that was going on. But let's because we've got some things now that for those of you playing at home, the transfer portal opened today. So I want to, as things are coming through, I want to get to that. And some things have just come through, Eric, if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, Darian Gillette just broke through Hayes Fawcett. I believe Hayes with On 3 broke it. That Darian Gillette's going in the portal. That was expected. We'd been hinting at it. Just, we don't like to talk about them before they go in. Sometimes that takes on a life of its own, and you never know when they're going to have second thoughts and maybe decide not to, or the coaches talk them out of it. So we don't like to throw it out there. We did have some hints out there that Darian Gillette would go in, or we expected him to go in, and so that's the case. Now, with it being expected, the staff will know how to respond. They're going to have to go to the portal. Maybe now they'll take 2 linebackers instead of 1. They didn't exactly hit numbers at the position this year, and despite being extremely talented going into next year with Anthony Hill, Leonga Lafau and Anthony Smith, they need more depth. They need
Yeah.
other guys that can play. You know, they like to rotate. Losing Benda and Maurice Blackwell is going to sting a little bit. So, you know, that's going to open up another spot. So now we got the linebacker number at 2 for next season, which is a nice buck there. Was that Taj?
Yep.
Yeah. So we got, so now I'm expecting them to take 2. Probably get one guy that can play a lot and maybe another developmental linebacker that's young that they can, you know, bring in and kind of count him as a member of the 2025 class.
Let's, again, sticking with the portal here. One of the things that you've been very good about pointing out and educating the readers is the need and the stress that is put on retention. And I think a lot of people, it's really nice to go look and see what's available, do some shopping. That's super fun. I mean, I can't discount that. But the retention game is really where the effort is spent. And maybe if you can just bring some folks that aren't Inside Texas readers, which you should be, go to InsideTexas.com. You'll know all of this stuff going into it. But if you could, why and how is retention such a big deal in this day and age with the portal?
Yeah, well, you got a lot of poachers out there. You know, if you got a pretty gal in the arm, you got guys trying to steal it from you. And that's what's going on. you gotta keep those poachers at bay and you know, keep yours in house. Tavondre Sweat, that was a big one. That retention wasn't necessarily from other schools trying to get him. It was whether or not he'd go to the NFL. Alfred Collins, similar. You're trying to coax them back to, you know, not to go be a 5th round draft pick, come back, make some money, and go become a 2nd, 1st round draft pick potentially. Janae Barron was one that they've had to keep away from other schools and the NFL. 2 years ago, it was keeping them from Oregon and some others, and last year was to keep them out of the NFL. Look how important these players are. You know, everybody gets excited about who's coming in, the new piece. Everybody, that's something new to talk about. You know, everybody, Jaheim Otis out of Alabama. Well, you know, it's more exciting to me when they keep Tavondre Sweat than when they bring in a Jaheim Otis,
right?
Or that sort of guy. So Texas is you know, part of what's lifted them the last couple of years is their ability to keep players out of the NFL and away from other schools.
And you mentioned this. You had a really good article this morning at InsideTexas.com about specifically the portal. And one of the things that again doesn't really get talked about is what the playoffs bring to that. You know, because as before, we would have a championship game, and then maybe if you're really lucky, you're in a Jan 1 bowl game, and kids sit out. That's when kids throw their name in the transfer portal. Maybe they're going to, you know, keep themselves healthy for the NFL draft. And now we have meaningful football going into December and January. And can you maybe expand a little bit on how that actually affects Texas's ability to retain players?
Yeah, well, I mean, it allows them to really kick it down on the road to the spring, you know, and that allows you more time to raise funds and figure out, you know, what your go forward plan is, who you need to bring in, who you even want to retain. So if they can, you know, win this game on the 21st, that'll get them past the portal. Whereas Clemson's trying to do the same thing because they've got a couple of guys that are eyeing the portal that every school in the country is going to be looking at. So winning that first game and keeping guys for the most part out of the portal, they want to hang around. They want a chance to win a national championship. Obviously, Gillette goes in, Dre Bledsoe goes in. Those guys weren't playing at all. So that makes a little bit more sense for them. But this will be, if they can win, you'll be, you know, kicking this problem down the road. And trust me, man, guys are coming after the top flight players at Texas. You know, it's going to be a tough offseason for them to navigate. You'd rather have more time to do it. You know, a loss to Clemson would put the staff behind the 8 ball with having to deal with the portal.
And when we talk about this, one of the things that and I know you alluded to this earlier, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this as well, Coach, because this obviously it's all part and parcel, right? We like to think of it as, oh, we've got the transfer portal and then we've got high school recruiting, but all of these things are symbiotic and go into management of your roster. And roster management, as you both have alluded to, has been a strength of the Texas program. They've been a really good job of creating depth and having depth. But going into these next few weeks, Coach, I'll start with you. Where do you see the areas where we really need to put some focus in terms of the portal?
Well, I'll say this. I wrote an article this morning speaking to that, how Texas is going about recruiting the portal, how do you add players, and how you scout them, right, to fill those holes that you need. So I encourage everybody to go read that. But look, Texas has, and all of college football, everybody has a GM now who helps manage the roster. And Sark has done a great job himself of building and constructing a roster that has depth and things like that, and quality depth. And so, but you also have a GM on the roster who helps with that along the way. You have a board up, you got your depth chart up, and you got your incoming players. And then you also have the guys that you're scouting, potentially placing the guys who are going to the portal, or you expect to go into the portal, right? And so you just have to find a way to find good players to replace the guys that are leaving who can come in and contribute right away, right? Especially if you don't want to bring in a young guy. You want a young guy to come in and kind of be developed. Bring in an older guy with some experience that you don't have to teach as much. Just teach him the playbook and the scheme. Let him be able to come in and contribute right away. That's how you replace those guys that leave for the portal, or guys who are getting poached to go into the portal by other teams, right? And so I think Sark and staff do a great job bringing in experienced, skilled players who can come in and contribute right away. I think they'll look to do that this portal cycle as well.
So it does seem to me that obviously the position of need throughout the country is in the defensive tackle position, right? And I think what Eric put in there was, we're probably looking between 2 or 3, maybe 3 defensive linemen, 3 that we're absolutely going to need in this portal cycle. And do you think because of this 12-team playoff, and because especially when you think about the teams that are in the playoff, I mean, I think to get to that level, you're going to have a pretty solid defensive line and maybe even some depth there. Do you think that affects who might even be available in this time? Those kids that may actually consider transferring, but aren't doing it because they're in a similar position as Texas?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of that. But Texas is basically competing against the same teams in the playoffs or in the SEC as they are for the all these defensive tackles. We just saw it in high school last week with them getting Justice Terry. They beat Georgia, Auburn, and Alabama for him. It's going to be the same thing in the portal. They're all going to be going after the same guys. The demand is way more than the supply. You're going to see guys get overpaid. Look what we talked about, OU paying Dominic Williams last year, which allowed Texas to go get Jermaine Lole from him. Fortunately, that worked out very well for Texas. But yeah, it's going to be tough. They need 3 defensive tackles. The number was actually 4 before they got Justice Terry, but that's, money's not finite. That's going to have an effect on things. It's all, like you said, it's all it's all roster management. It's all the same thing. They have to be planning now with the spring in mind as well. And so they're going to fill as many needs as they can. They've got a lot of them. We've got we got a few articles up on InsideTexas.com. After I get off this video, I'm going to write another one that goes more into depth on needs. We've mentioned a number of players that are up for consideration that the staff is evaluating right now. Because they were so busy last week with National Signing Day and game prep for Georgia, they haven't really been evaluating as much as they will be in the next couple of days. So they're getting caught up on evaluation, and we'll probably start seeing some offers going out.
Coach, sticking with defensive tackle, signing Terry, Sharma, and Charles, just off the top of your head, are any of them, all of them, who is a potential player to get some meaningful reps their freshman year?
I'm gonna say all 3, just looking at film, right? But they have to come in and prove it and show that they're mature enough to handle snaps and that they can play consistently well to earn more snaps. And I think you saw it this year with Texas in general in more positions. A lot of freshmen played early, right? And so if you can come in, especially you're early enrollee, you can come in and handle business the right way on and off the field. You go through the spring, you get a little bigger, a little stronger, a little faster. Then you roll that into fall camp with some consistency. You can earn snaps. So I can say all 3, but you just have to get on campus and prove it. But you always want to take some older veteran guys from Porter if you can, who's already developed. Sure. Right? And let them steal some snaps while the young guys really develop and get to the level that you want them to be. And you saw that throughout the season, even with Sadir Mitchell now, he's starting to gain more snaps as he goes. And so you have that. I think all 3 can play. They're all special, especially they all have some unique traits that most people don't have for the kids their size and their age, their size and their age. But I think all 3 can earn snaps. It just depends on them being consistent and earning it once they get to campus.
We want to take 1 second here. Well, it's actually 40 seconds to hear from our other sponsor today, Andre the Lawyer.
This video is brought to you by Andre the Lawyer. If you're injured, trust the team that secured millions for their clients and helped thousands of Texans with their injury case. Car wrecks, slip and falls, 18-wheeler accidents, on-the-job injuries, and wrongful deaths. Don't let insurance tell you what your claim is worth. Hire Andre the Lawyer to fight for you. Principal office is in Dallas, but they serve Texans throughout the state. So don't wait and call Andre the Lawyer today at 214-444-8808. That's 214-444-8808. The contact information is in the description.
So going through this, Eric, and this is still relatively new. Everything is kind of changing, and that's exactly the one I wanted to go to. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, they brought in Cecilia Cano very late in the 2023 cycle. He was everybody had him as a foregone conclusion at OU. They basically brought him in because he's a pass rusher. He's slight of frame, not the biggest guy. Was going to be a guy, someone they just stashed on the roster to fill out. The second they signed Colin Simmons, I thought this was going to be in the works. We saw Colin Simmons take out Billy Walton. They're just bringing a different guy, man. Colin's an NFL guy all the way. Cecilia was more of a project. As somebody told me, those guys come from Hawaii. They're either football players or volleyball players. And the guy said, Connor's built more like a volleyball guy. But he's a good pass rusher. So if somebody can get him time to continue to develop, he needs to put on more weight. He needs to get up about 230 pounds at least. He's probably still about 215. He's got good pass rushing skills. He's got a good feel for it. Uses his hands well. But it wasn't going to factor in immediately. They've got, Colin's not coming off the field next year. If they get Trey Moore back, he's going to be playing a lot. And so, it's just playing time, and the writing's on the wall for some of these guys. If they're not playing a lot, it's not a surprise.
Yeah, I imagine it's got to be difficult to know that you're going to a program where, look, you're getting recruited by a program like Texas. It's a big deal. It's a stamp of approval, certainly. But as we know, the second you get on campus, what you did in high school really doesn't matter. And now you're competing against a very narrow pool of highly talented people. It's got to be really challenging. And look, I think sometimes it's easy to malign these kids that decide to throw themselves in the portal. But just because they're throwing themselves in the portal doesn't mean they don't want to compete. It doesn't mean that they're bad or they're not culture people or they're not a right thing. It's just maybe, look, they need to develop and they need to go somewhere where they can actually get some reps. If you've got 6 guys ahead of you that are potential NFL talents, and you may even be an NFL talent, you still need to get those reps.
I hold them in higher light than I do guys that stick around Texas just to get their degree and they don't care if they ever play. And there's some of those, and I get that part of it too. But if you're a competitor, you're going to want to go somewhere and play. You only get one chance at playing college football, unless you're some of these quarterbacks that get like eight years. It seems like
the Dylan Gabriels of the world. Sure.
Yeah. So it's a short. You got a short shelf life. You want to play. You want to go create some memories. These guys are just looking for a chance to play, and we wish them luck.
It's a very unique season, and I want to just transfer over just a little bit as we kind of move through this. We're going to hop back and forth with the transfer portal as things become available to us, but I would love to get your thoughts on this because it is a little bit of a hot mess right now, but I think that's to be expected in its first year, and that's obviously the college football playoff. When you were watching that 4-hour broadcast yesterday, Coach, on the reveal, what were your initial thoughts?
Hoping that Alabama didn't get in. That was my first.
Okay, all right.
Honestly, I thought SMU deserved to get in. I was happy to see them get in. I was surprised to see. I didn't think Boise was going to go 3, but hey, they earned it, I guess. And so it was good to see some teams sort of very deserving get in. I wrote Clemson off, or I guess I wrote Dabo off, and he turned it around and won the ACC. Right now, he's in. And so just watching all the bowl selections, man, it's just a new era, man. I'm seeing teams up there that normally wouldn't be in, like Tennessee's back in the playoffs. In the playoffs, right? Like to see their program come from where they come from, and now they're in the playoffs. Just looking at Arizona State, it's like, man, like, well, they had a chance any other type of in the 4 games.
No, of course,
a different bracket or different type of setting, the way the playoffs are seeded. So it's good to see teams who earn the right to be there that normally wouldn't be in a running like this. Kind of reminds me of March Madness just a little bit, but not so extreme. But just watching, it was fun to see some of the teams who are back in college being relevant again, being in the playoffs like the SMUs. So it was fun to see that.
I think go ahead, Eric.
My main takeaway was I feel like Texas got a pretty good draw. Clemson is dangerous just because they have some like for like athletes. It's a real program. They've been around for a long time. They've had that culture in place for a long time. It's not going to be an easy out, but they're not the same Clemson that we're used to seeing in the middle of the 2010s. No, not even close to that. And then you get Arizona State, which is a very fun team. You could call them, speaking of March Madness, you could kind of call them Cinderella. A lot of teams, a lot of people had them, way down in the Big 12 projections coming into the season. And to see them with and all these Cinderellas need their little darling. So you got Scatabo right there. That's like kind of a fan favorite. So you get Clemson, and potentially, if you beat Clemson, you get Arizona State. That to me, that's a pretty good draw.
This to me is exactly why I love college football. You've this new expansion that has offered us is, yes, we have more teams have an opportunity to win the national championship, but from a fan, just knowing that there's meaningful football that is being played into December, into January, it kind of takes, it absolutely takes the sting off of a championship game like that SEC championship game. Whereas I probably would have been doubling up on my Wellbutrin and Lexapro this week, but now I can just have my coffee and be a regular person. So that does help like that. And the other side of this, and I know Chris Fowler on his Instagram yesterday was talking about this idea that, this is an opinion driven league. It's not the NFL. It's not the NHL. It's not the NBA, where there's empirical data that says, okay, you've won this, you've won your division, you've won your league. Now you're going into the playoffs. And because of that opinion, well, first and foremost, just to speak bluntly, it allows us to do this, right? Yeah. It allows us to talk about it and feel like we have some sort of agency and work through it. But I hope that doesn't change. I heard Saban yesterday kind of roundabout talking about a super league, about getting certain teams together and doing it that way. And Herb Street was talking about maybe having more control over the schedule. And for my take, I hope that doesn't happen. I think there needs to be absolutely some reform. I do agree with the sentiment here in the chat that I think the conference champions, they get an automatic bye into the tournament, but they don't get an automatic seed. I think that's the way it needs to go. But this is it. This is why we get to do this and talk about this sport, is because it's opinion based. And I hope that doesn't change.
No, it's fun. I mean, we were laughing on the telecast yesterday how they had first out, like how.
Yeah.
That is pure evil.
It's brutal. That's information that nobody needs to hear.
Oh, man. It's so close, buddy. Yeah.
It's like a hot girl in school, like dating your best friend and then coming up and being like, you know what? If you just were like a little bit taller, I was totally going to go for you. It's brutal.
Yeah. Hey, look at Oregon's draw. They get number one. Obviously they're number one, but they get the winner of Tennessee, Ohio State. That is,
what's the reward in that, man?
I would rather have Texas's run of 2 games than probably that 1 game, honestly. And I know the more you take the field, the more opportunity and exposure you have to lose. But man, that's brutal.
Our very own Ian Boyd is convinced that Penn State has the best draw. So they've got SMU game 1, and then after that they go to Boise State. So look. I'm happy to be in this thing, certainly, and I think at the end of the day, you still have to win your games. So, but
Georgia's got a tough one against Notre Dame, assuming Notre Dame.
I know, that's right.
Yeah. You just knew that they're going to put Indiana and Notre Dame together. That's pretty funny. In South Bend, Georgia. I mean, that could be a rock and stick fight between Georgia and Notre Dame. Man. Yeah, I'm thrilled with Texas's run.
Oh, absolutely. And it's as we alluded to earlier in the show, we're starting to see now that Coach Saban is gone and maybe Kirby has taken on the mantle of the elder statesman in the SEC. He's starting to do that politicking a little bit, and he's standing a few feet away from Sankey and giving him the business while accepting his championship trophy. I don't know whether he just does that for motivation of his players, but he's definitely throwing it out there.
He's pretty annoying.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it, though. I love it.
We want to let you know we've got our normal schedule this week. Obviously, we're not going to be having our roundtable and pregame shows. We don't have pregames. We don't have postgames because we don't have a game or the day after show. But please check in with us tomorrow. I'm going to be on with Paul. We will be talking a little bit more detail about this Georgia game and then really breaking down what the college football playoff looks like. Obviously, the transfer portal is going on. It's going on till December 28th. So as Eric pointed out, we want to stay in this playoff as long as possible to help delay some of maybe some people leaving the program. So please join us. Please like and subscribe to these videos. And obviously join us at InsideTexas.com. All of this stuff is going on. They're writing about it constantly. In fact, we're going to get off this right now so Eric can write more about this. If you check the show description, you will see the Inside Texas portal tracker. Go ahead. That's free. Go ahead and check that out. You'll be able to follow that and get a sense of what our product is like. And we want to earn your business. So please come and join us at InsideTexas.com. Thanks so much, guys.